podcast. We have a superstar with us today, Tara Dillon. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Ryan. You good?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Now, I can't imagine there's anyone within our industry who doesn't know who Tara Dillon is. But for the one or two that don't, do you want to just give us a quick background of where you come from? Obviously, you're now CEO of CIMSPA, huge role and influence in the industry. But do you want to give us a bit of a run through of how you got to where you are now?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it could take up the entire podcast, so I'll give it a potted version, right? But I started as a lifeguard and fitness instructor back in 1987.
Sorry,
So what's that? 39, God, 39 years ago. Do you know what? In fact, it's 39 years on Monday. I started on St. Patrick's Day
that is
in
crazy.
87. So and being half Irish, that kind of feels about right. And yeah, so uh, that was it. I have worked in the industry. I've worked in public, private, big organisations, all sorts of things over the years. And my roots are deeply centred in operations. You know, walking the gym floor, standing on poolside, running a leisure centre, running several leisure facilities. Yeah, duty manager, general manager, area manager, got a bit of marketing. I've done pool plot, you name it. I've probably walked a mile in everybody's shoes who's
But you know
listening.
that's great though, Tari, when you think about it, because obviously we've got someone who's head of one of the biggest organisations in our industry, and they've done everything. So I'm not
You
saying
did say
I'm
I
not
did
saying
it
you've been
well. I
amazing
didn't
at
say I
everything,
was the
but
best lifeguard in the world, Ryan, but I have dabbled in a lot of the occupations in our sector. So yeah,
and so
I'm
so you've got gone through all that. And how long now have you been at SimSpa?
12 years.
Wow.
I know it
Uh,
started off as a comment. 2014, Dave, we were just chatting about, Dave Stalker gave me a call. We had a chat about, whether CIMSPA or not is needed, can it work, etc. And would I, on a comment from my other job, I was exec director of IQL, so the lifeguards, and I felt quite strongly about what CIMSPA should and could do, which we'll probably come on to in a minute.
yeah.
Uh, and I was only going to do it for a year, right?
Okay.
And then hand it back to him and say, ego stalks, here's a business plan, and I've done some consultation, and I think it could probably operate like this. And then I was going to recommend the type of person for the CEO, and I definitely wasn't going for the job. I like all that year, and that's a comment. No, 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 I'm quite happy where I am. But during the consultation, getting out and about and meeting operators and teams and um, from every corner, independent gyms, big operators, big chains, shop floor. It was pretty obvious to me that it was very much needed and actually could make a difference. So yeah, that was 14 years ago.
Did you come in then when because
12
obviously
years.
we had ILAM before, didn't we? We had
Yeah,
ILAM. Did you come in when that was changing over from all of
no,
that?
I
And
was after. So ISRM and ILAM merged. And we had parks as well in there, so it became ISPAL.
that's it.
If you remember that, Institute of Sport,
And amenity,
Parks and Leisure.
yeah, some.
Yeah, and then it became IMSPA um, because the sort of leisure fitness sector felt it what the title wasn't really reflective. Physical activity is actually what we're delivering, sport and physical activity. So that's
Yeah.
when it became since IMSPA, and then a very clever bunch of people got charter status back in 2011, 12, and then I took it on in 14. So yeah, I wasn't.
And how does because it's quite interesting because when you look at the different organisations, obviously you've got UK Active and the various other activity networks out there, and you guys are the only one that sit there with that chartered status, aren't you? So
Yeah.
how does that put you in the mix of it all? I guess in terms of and what does that chartered status give you guys as an organisation?
Well, it's look, what we're not is UK active, right? We're not a trade
Absolutely not.
body. CIMSPA was created to look after the workforce and professionalize the workforce, and it's that bit that I feel really strongly about. So, having done a lot of these roles over the years, you remember, Ryan, I think for me, it was about changing perceptions about us as a sector, and particularly our workforce, and not being seen as a bit sort of dumb. There was this
It's
horrible.
horrible, isn't it? I remember my
Yeah,
first job, Tara. Obviously I've got a degree coming sports science, everything else. First job was a gym instructor though
yeah,
in Leamington, and some young lad came in and he was going, "Oh, what qualifications do you need to be a gym instructor?" And I was like, "Well, I've got a degree." And he was almost mocking me because I was and he just like, "What? No, this doesn't feel." This was my first job, 2 months into the job,
mm,
straight out of uni, and that almost makes you feel like going, "Oh, what am I doing?" And that's so
yeah,
wrong because the impact we have on people's lives and also the role's
right,
actually a lot more complicated than probably a lot of other industries. It's not as
right.
easy as people think.
Exactly, right. You've read anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, you understand business, you understand marketing, you understand motivational conversations. You've got to adapt to every single client in front of you. You
That's right.
can't apply a cookie cutter approach to fitness and physical activity. And so, yeah, that's really what motivated me, Ryan. I was kind of getting a bit fed up with this sort of condescending
Yeah.
downward look on us. And I feel really strongly that the 600,000 people who work in our sector need to be recognised.
Is that how many it is now?
Yeah, it's about the size of the motor industry. Yeah. So you've
That's
got
incredible.
associated roles. I mean, it's about 289,000 directly in physical activity, and then associated roles, like marketing or
Yeah.
accountancy, or, but yes, 600,000 strong. And
Wow.
and if you include coaching and the volunteer workforce, there's 3 million in that. It's huge. So, and for the reasons you've just stated, the impact we have on people's wellness, both physical and mental, is extraordinary, and the amount of learning that a person goes through to be qualified. Now we need to talk about qualified in a bit. It is overlooked, and I think it doesn't. It's also, as you and I will attest to, an extraordinarily interesting and diverse career. I mean, I've loved every minute of my career.
There's not much time I've not enjoyed. I mean, obviously, I've stepped out of the operations to a point with what I do now. We're working with people, but I've loved every minute of it. I did a little bit of golf along the way. I've done spa as well as part of my roles, and
Right.
it's a fascinating industry, and also the crossover skills. So even if you did say 10 years, 15 years in leisure, the ability to cross over to other careers is massive because of the
Right.
skills you learn.
So that's another thing, right, around professional recognition. That's what chartered means, right? It gives us the authority to stand shoulder to shoulder with other professions that all have Royal Chartered. So we all know
Yeah,
that a chartered accountant or a chartered surveyor, law is the same, medicine is the same. Medicine has, the Royal College of GPs has a Royal Charter in the same way that we do as a sector. And it allows that organisation to accredit formally professional recognition, bestow professional recognition on somebody who deserves it. And I think a large proportion, a massive amount of our sector deserve it. And then equally to your point, I remember when I was a GM, right? I've told this story a couple of times. When I was a general manager, I had to be an expert in finance, and there's a chartered body for that. An expert in marketing, there's a chartered body for that. An expert in HR, there's a chartered body for that. An expert in engineering, there's a chartered body for that. And so it goes on. And then practically frontline understanding anatomy, physiology, etc. There are chartered bodies for that. And yet, if I went to the pub on a Friday and told them I was a GM in the local leisure centre, they just had this image of me in a pair of shorts and a whistle getting about, and it was a hobby job.
Yeah.
So
I think the problem we have, and
it's-
and and this isn't actually the public's fault necessarily, but because we are someone else's leisure time,
yeah,
um, they struggle to accept that as as a serious career. And I think that's where hospitality in the UK struggles. So when you're looking at hotels and stuff like that, it's not seen as quite often, especially food and beverage and stuff. It's seen as a university kid's job
yeah,
rather than and you're like, having worked in Marriott, I didn't want anywhere near food and beverage because it's a tough old gig days. You know what I mean? Doing conferences and I was like, that's a tough job. Why isn't it given the? But yeah, if you go to India, you go to America, you go it's given a lot more credence than it is
yeah,
in this country, and I think a lot of it comes down because it's someone's leisure time. It's the only job I know where a customer, will walk into the general manager's office and not think twice about it. They'll just open the door and walk in.
yeah,
Like, I wouldn't do that at Tesco's. I wouldn't do that at the bank. I wouldn't do that anywhere else. But in a leisure club, it's sort of all right just to walk in and speak to the general manager. And you're
yeah.
like, I like it, but also there's that lack of respect, isn't there? They sort of go, hold on a minute.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I didn't know that happened, but yeah, it doesn't feel particularly respectful, does it? But you know, it's an opportunity. I think the timing of Sims was key, because you know the way that people are now really taking full account for their own physical and mental well-being, and they recognize the power of our sector and what we do. I think that shift is happening. I think you know the growth in the growth of independent gyms, for example, the growth of the number of people who are hold gym memberships or partake in sport and physical
yeah.
activities, not just gyms. You know, look at Parkrun. It's gone
Oh,
crazy.
Park Run has to be held up as one of the greatest things that's been developed over recent years because
Right.
it's a charity. They don't, and I don't know what their revenue sources are. I don't know how they make the money. I don't look into that depth. But I mean, I remember the one in West Midlands when I lived in Nottingham. They had 500 adults turn up, and then I think that was
Yeah,
on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday they had nearly as much with families and kids, and you're just like, that is just bonkers for a free event on a weekend. I just think, and then they got 1,000 around the country, let alone how many they got around the world.
yeah,
It's
it's
just an
fantastic.
incredible organisation.
Yeah. But my point is, people are more discerning now. People
Yeah,
understand that movement is key to them. People understand the health benefits of it, and so I think as a sector we have an obligation to meet an expectation, which is the person who's going to support me and instruct me and coach me knows what they're talking about, but more importantly, I can check them, right?
yeah.
Because you look at some of the absolute bullshit, excuse my language, on social media, these, you know, self-appointed experts in physical activity on diet nutrition, you read some of it, you think you're absolutely talking
I've
out.
always been a big believer that personal trainers aren't nutritionists, and
Yeah,
that's just a personal view. Some of them are brilliant; they read up on it and they are excellent. But I do think there comes a point where you go, if we're going to start providing, you need to be qualified in that. You can't just be
oh
good at
yeah,
reading some books and go,
100%.
I'm now going to write your meal prep. I'm going to do you sort of
Yeah,
guys. Actually, there's a proper science behind that. I mean, it's a 3-year degree to go
yeah.
and do nutrition. You know what I mean? It's quite a serious thing.
Then
Let's not belittle that.
I
I
think
just
I think that's the other thing, right? That's important about professional recognition and having a chartered institute is it that becomes an enabler for that, right? So
yeah.
let me just explain that. So if I'm a chartered accountant or a chartered surveyor, I'm not qualified once, licensed to practice forever. I must maintain my own professional development.
Yeah,
And it's not necessarily revisiting a pivot table on a spreadsheet or understanding that. It's upskilling and adding additional information that's more contemporary. Now, for us, if that means bolting on a skill set that's been quality assured on diet and nutrition or menopause or uh, falls prevention, or you know, we
yeah,
were talking
GLP-1
about cancer,
or whatever. Yeah,
cancer rehab, adding those skills to these brilliant professionals, but enabling us to reach a broader population, I think is key. And what a chartered institute can do is accredit that.
yeah,
Whereas before, I think what we were saying is people could just state it and we went, it must be true then.
We
right?
almost want it so that SimSpot, you guys have to say, right, that's the qualification it can be. And we don't get, because we went through a bit of a spell, and you'll be able to tell me how bad it is or how good it is now. But we went through a spell where you were almost gone from 6 month PT qualification courses to suddenly you could do them over a weekend quickly
Yeah.
online. And and we almost need it so SimSpot is there going, actually, that can't happen. In
Mhm.
order to be accredited, you need X, Y, and Z, and it can't be
Yeah.
some £300 weekend course, and now you're going out and
I
delivering.
found
But
one better. I found 30 quid Groupon voucher.
oh my God.
Seriously, I found one some years ago. And you got a certificate that said you were a PT. I mean, you could do it in your lunch hour. There was, but yeah,
That is,
but you're right. So some chartered institutes develop the training, some develop the training and deliver the training, and others are sort of custodians of standards. And our belief is that we shouldn't corner the market. We're a chartered institute. We're a Privy Council organisation that's a charity fundamentally.
yeah,
So to then become commercial, sort of poacher and gamekeeper doesn't really sit very comfortably with us. So we want to be a chartered institute in the purest sense, so that what we can say is we'll develop with the sector a professional standard that says in it to deliver learning to a PT or to a sports coach. These are the very minimum things, right? And they're
yeah,
pretty high standard, but the minimum requirements of knowledge, skills, and behaviours that should be demonstrated in assessment, that should be demonstrated in this learning package are X. We're the custodians of those, and that's our pledge to the sector. Then people who deliver training, so we've got a nice open marketplace, which is better for buyers, it's better for clients,
absolutely.
better for operators, makes it a little bit more competitive rather than just a one-stop shop in
But
CIMSPA.
at least having you guys there controlling the standards.
But we will only endorse organisations that can prove that they've met
Yeah,
that professional standard. And just in case they go through a tick box exercise, we are also funded to quality assure it. So it doesn't stand still.
yeah.
One of my team said this to me last week, quality never stands still, boss. I was like, no, I agree with that. So I'll tell Linz I said it. Um, so yeah, that's key to it, right? Because I think before Sims rocked up, we had a skills council.
We had reps, didn't we, for a while?
Well, it
Which,
was skills active, right?
yeah.
And yes, they hosted reps. I mean, reps were set up by the FIA, which was UK
Oh,
active.
was it? Oh, okay.
Um, and then I mean they were on the same floor in the same building on Tottenham Court Road for ages. So it felt natural for reps to sit over there. I mean, I was part of, of a whole gang of people who set reps up. So, there's precedent here. But CIMSPA is a much broader, it's not just fitness, it's sport, it's management.
I was going to come on to that because you guys don't just represent fitness, which is I think it is a good thing. I mean, there's certain things we've had conversations about. There's just certain things in the industry where I feel we need to tighten down.
Mhm.
So we are representative of a certain part of the industry or certain. But I don't think that's good for you guys if you did that, simply because you can pull those skill sets and the training from other, because there's a lot of crossover between sport and fitness. Huge
Oh,
amount of crossover from
yeah,
those things. You guys do all the swimming you work with the SDA and that, don't you, with the swimming qualifications and so on. So I think all that it makes sense for you to have that overriding view of more than one sector as such. Because I just
yeah.
think that helps us as a sector, to be honest.
Well, I think we'll probably come on to, well, we don't seem to resonate with government yet. I'm pretty certain you're going to ask me that, Ryan, if I know you. Um, but as a starting point, we have to not just state that we're a profession, we have to prove that we are, right? And that's why CIMSPA does sit across every corner of the sector. And in actual fact, we're now being asked, it's pretty tough this one, but we're now being asked to work in play and outdoor
Oh,
learning and
wow.
other areas like that that don't have a home for this, which we're looking at. We're looking at because the more recognition and the word you used earlier, credence, in our sector, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
The one thing I do want to pick before we even talk about the government stuff, the one challenge we're finding, and I find this on the ground, and I don't know how you see it, is because of the way the structure's changed in a lot of clubs. Whereas we used to, like you've done, lifeguard, gym instructor, PT, juice
Yeah.
manager, and so on up. Those sort of roles don't exist anymore in a lot of the industry. They do, I guess, in the leisure centres and the likes of David Lloyd and so on. But because the staffing structure seems to have changed, and we've gone into a freelance PT model for a lot of clubs, we seem to be struggling now to have really good general managers coming into the clubs, especially in the private sector. Um, and I guess the one thing that we were trying to look for really good management training to upskill a few, and that was part of it that was sort of missing in the industry. And we were talking to Fit for Business, is it? And they
Yeah.
do one, but they do it in conjunction with the Leisure Trust, don't they? With the
Future
guys up in
Fit.
Manchester. Yeah, Future Fit.
Yeah,
They
that's
do it
right.
with,
Yeah, they work
but they
with.
haven't got one that's open up to the general market. And you're sort of going, we sort of got all this PT, but not that middle management level. And I think
Mm.
that's a big challenge. I don't know whether you're seeing that within what you guys are doing, but we're definitely seeing it on the
I
ground at the
do,
minute.
yeah, I do, I do, and you're right. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say, the caliber of GMs has dropped. I think, but a lack of formal training is a problem. So the standards are there. We've written the standards, so we've got entry, aspiring, and senior management
Okay.
standards. It's the provision. So many training providers, flooding the market on PT, Group X, etc., and expanding those and sort
Yeah.
of around the specialisms. We're awash with that, but we're really low on the ground when it comes to sort of management stuff. So we're we're looking at, it's a big area of focus for us this year, is to make sure that the breadth of training available matches the genuine career pathways of our
Yeah.
sector. Doesn't stop at entry level, right? It's great that we've got that competition, but we need breadth, right?
I think
So
the challenge is because they don't get the experience going through those routes anymore.
yeah,
A lot of the time, by the time they get to because there's a lot now where obviously the PTs have done really well, they're going to open their own club and whatever, but they don't have that business acumen or the management side because they've never done it. And it's
no,
not that they're not great people; they just haven't gone through those rungs like we would have done in our career and what was normal back in the 90s, early
yeah,
noughties. So you're almost going, well, we need that training to get them up to speed to where they need to be so they can be the manager that you need them to be. And I feel sorry for a lot of these guys coming in because they don't have that experience, and then owners are expecting them suddenly
yeah,
to click, and it's
yeah.
sort of
We are short on it, I agree. But there's other organisations that we can partner with who do it well, right? Chartered Institute of Management, for example. So, or Institute of Learning Management. There's two of them. But there's also some stuff we're doing with Cardiff Met University, where I don't know if you're familiar with the how difficult it is to run a uni now, but they're running out of money.
really.
Yes, they're culling a lot of courses, and sport goes. I mean, sport is one of the first hit. We've got a relationship with about 80 unis, who are coming away from the sort of typical degree model.
Right. Okay.
That won't be thrown out, by the way. Degrees are degrees are degrees. But the Cardiff Met principle, and they're working with all sorts of unis, not only in the UK but across Europe on this, is this sort of concept of micro credentialing, so that in the workplace I can do units of learning
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
that sort of mount up to, and it could be a qual, it could be a degree, it could be a master's, PhD if you want. But whilst I'm working, right? So we've got sort of bite-sized, accessible, affordable management models that you don't have to leave the workplace for and go and enroll on a uni course and pay 9 grand a year in student fees. So I love that concept, and it's underwritten by the QAA, I think it's called. So again, they're bound by regulation too. So the thing with academia is nothing happens quickly, right? So
No, I can imagine.
so, but I mean, I love the concept. We still need deliverers, though. We still need.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I've looked at go back to to do a masters over the last year or so. But when you're looking and go, actually, I've got to sign up to. That's the set time. That's the amount. That's the cost. And you're
Yeah,
still going. Actually, if you could break that down bite size,
yeah,
and then over the period it will equate to X,
yeah.
you're more likely to do it.
We're
And
not
you may
more
just be
alien.
happy getting that part of the course. You don't want the whole masters. You just
Yeah,
want X, Y, and Z. So you just do those parts of it.
it's like the concept of open university, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I love the idea of that.
Yeah, yeah. We're quite enthused by it. So yeah, I'll let you know. Watch this space, but we do need that provision. I mean, the only thing I would say though, right, is when I was my first role as a general manager, I was completely and utterly out of my depth. No two ways about it. Um, and I learned by mistakes really. And then I went to another organization that was better. I mean, that particular organization that I won't name, but it was a local authority. It was a toxic place to work as well. So it didn't enable me or empower me or I didn't feel motivated to learn
Yeah,
either.
I
I
had one of them
was
as my first GM.
kind of winging it really. And then I went to another organization where they were far more organized. It was a much more positive culture and they invested in people and they didn't really want to promote you or set you up to fail because it wasn't the right thing for the business either, right? So then I did some learning, but what I did work out in the middle of my career is that if I'm going to be any good at something, I'm going to have to get off my arse and go and find the learning
Yeah,
and
yeah.
be a bit more curious and a bit more resourceful myself. Um, because you can't do those jobs and continue to wing it. That it's not, you're going to break it. It's going to affect this. And the other thing is we're running buildings, we let the public in and we allow people to train their bodies, right? And get into swimming pools with chemicals and chlorine gas scares and stuff like that. It's important you know what you're doing. So plus, if we're going to grow as a sector and we're going to, do this collaboration with health and all the rest of it, there's the art of negotiation and collaboration and partnership with organizations that don't look like us, local authorities,
Yeah,
local
yeah.
authorities, etc. You can't wing that either. So that the art of negotiation and collaboration and understanding.
It's an interesting one, that one, Tara. Actually, we did world-class negotiation skills when I was at Marriott. Marriott were brilliant as an
Right.
organisation. It got to the point where you're like, I don't want to do any more.
What did you
But
do there?
I was well, director of leisure for a while, and then director of golf and leisure. That's how I finished. But by the time I'd done, I was going out to Baku and Turkey and all sorts of
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
working there. But you effectively got a three to 5 day training course every 6 months minimum, but you could have it every quarter. And you on various things, 7 habits, world class
Yeah.
negotiation skill. I think your first week we used. You know Marcus Childs? You must know Marcus Childs.
Name, I don't know.
American guy who's, I mean, he's probably the best trainer I've ever been
Oh,
to.
okay.
But you used to have to go on his course, and he used to do the Marriott way and all that right from the start. First week, and you had a week away at a different hotel, and he deliver effectively your onboarding. And it was just, but that was the start. Then your first week was that, and
Mm,
then all the time, and it didn't. Managers got a different type of training than the lower, obviously, but everybody got it. It wasn't just the senior
mm.
members of staff, and I loved it for that, and I probably got a bit blasé with it in the end because became the norm. And then you go
Yeah.
to other companies, and it's certainly not the norm.
So I think
You,
you were very fortunate, to have a structured program like that is essential. And And the other thing is, we'll accredit if an organization has its own solid in-house training, we'll accredit that if it meets the
Yeah,
standard. And I would encourage that, because for somebody's personal development to have a sort of plan they know that they're going to continue to learn and develop and grow from, the organization does too. So, but I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. When I first started working for DC Leisure, which is now Places for People Leisure, we'd gone from local authority and we'd been tupied over into DC, which I personally was really excited about, and everybody was. And DC was Dave Cross, right? And he was a brilliant bloke, Crossy, absolutely brilliant. He was a
I
bit of a
imagine.
geezer, to be honest, and very smart, very entrepreneurial. But not the most, probably not the most polished bloke in the world. He was just, very relatable. I liked him.
Yeah, yeah. It was
And
just
and
him.
and I remember him saying, "Here's your contract. What's your bottom line?" Not a what? I'd come from local authority. There was no bottom line authority. You just had expenditure, right? So, right, okay. Better learn the lingo, and then started understanding it. And I was running several 8 accounts, and I remember getting a box. Remember all the printer paper used to come in a box like
Oh,
that? Yeah.
yeah.
A box that big full of accounts.
Oh my
The
Lord.
general ledger, P&L for every single one of the accounts, all 8 of them. So the GL was like that per site, and then you'd have a P&L on the top. And I looked at it and thought, it might as well have been written in Mandarin. I just didn't understand any of it. No training. And I was fortunate enough to have a mate who happened to be one of the finance directors at Npower of all places. He just lived in the same village as me, and I called him up and I said, "You're gonna have to tell me what this is."
I'll
And
buy you a beer and you
he
can show
came up,
me.
he came up right with a bottle of wine and a Chinese, and he said, "Right, you settle down. This is going to take a few hours, And gradually he taught me it, but that. And then next time I saw Crossy, he said, "What's your bottom line?" And I still remember it to this day. It was 289,
Oh
and
wow.
that was 299, I think. And yeah, bottom line's 289, Dave. And he would say, "Don't bleep it up. See you at the end of the year." And that was it. And you ran his business for him, and then you started really learning. So, and I don't think that's entirely fair to
No,
put
I don't. I mean, a lot
training.
of people would buckle under that, wouldn't they? That's
Yeah,
the thing. But that happens a lot in independent clubs. So when I go into a lot of clubs, the GM is literally just they've been hired. Oh,
yeah,
you've told me you know how to do it. And they throw them in, and then there isn't that support. And quite often, even in franchises, the owner's almost an investor rather than part of the
yeah,
business. So they're
yeah,
expecting the GM to know all this. You're like going, actually, if they've come from certain businesses, I mean, if you come from a pure gym and stuff like that, they don't get involved in the P&L. Great at what they do with the rest of the club, but that's
yeah,
all held by head office. And so you sort of going, they might be brilliant, but they might not know that. You know what I mean? You've got to
yeah.
train them to understand the reporting that you want to use. And
We're,
it's
we're looking at bringing in some business support stuff this year, which would be great for the independents, just
yeah,
understanding that, understanding tax, understanding your legal obligation, what, one end from a risk assessment to another, and when I need to apply it, and it licensing and music licensing and insurance, and we just want to create a sort of space where people can feel safe and that get access to information.
that'd be amazing, Tara, if you're able to pull
Yeah,
that
we are
together.
looking at it. Yeah, we are looking at
Yeah,
it.
it's definitely needed because it's not that these guys don't want to succeed. I say it a lot on LinkedIn and whatever. I don't actually think a club fails in our industry because of lack of hard work or lack of effort or lack of desire. It's usually a lack of skill and understanding. You only know what you know. It's as simple as that. And a
Yeah.
lot of the time they struggle to find that information.
Well, there's two other bits to it that motivated me. One was my own experience, right? Being chucked into the deep end wasn't that comfortable. Um, and I think I would have enjoyed that particular role much better had I had a bit more grounding in it.
Yeah,
But the other thing is, something like 60%, might even be 70%. I should have done my homework, but it's high of our sector is SME. It's small, medium
Yeah.
enterprises in start and scale up. And to your point, many of them, they don't fail because there's a lack of commitment, passion, or belief. It's a skill set. So we're having a look at that, see if we can
No,
work.
no, I'll be really interested to see. I mean, obviously, if you need any help with it, give it a shout. But the one thing I did want to pick up, because obviously you guys made a huge step over. I can't remember when you did it last year, but you made a huge step last year to start having the actual titles behind someone's name.
Yeah,
To now, it may seem a simple thing from a lot of people that are out there. I mean, I've got a BA in this or what, but I think and we were talking about credibility earlier. I think that goes a long way to now. I've never used my bachelor's or whatever behind my name, but I think it does give that people. If I had an MBA, I probably would. Or a doctorate, and have doctorate,
right.
like Glenda does, Dr. Glenda River Allen.
She deserves it. Clever woman.
Oh, absolutely. I don't call her doctor, but, but yeah, but I think it's great that you guys are doing that because that really does give the credibility to then what these people have learned and what they're doing, rather than just being, I don't know, I'm a leisure centre manager, but I've got this to say I'm actually qualified.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot behind that. First of all, it's the right thing to do, right? We
100%.
we we're a chartered institute. We have the authority to give you designated letters. But let me just break this down. So, if you talk about the health agenda, another motivation behind that was some years ago I met with a load of Royal Colleges and said, where do we fit for you? You like sport and physical activity. You keep telling us you understand the power of it, but you don't seem to engage with us. What's wrong? And I'm paraphrasing massively here, but they
Yeah,
said we don't understand your workforce. So we want to refer people, but we don't know to whom, and we
yeah,
don't
that's a
know
fair
if
point.
it's safe to do it. So I remember saying to them, okay, well, what we need to shore up that rickety bridge is some solid foundations that say to you that a person with chartered or advanced or senior practitioner status, you can see something behind it that says this person is qualified to work with this client in this environment,
Absolutely.
but also has other skill sets, which means they're now advanced or senior or chartered, where they can work with different types of populations or different specialisms. And you can just see it listed. And they said, yeah, that we want that.
And
So
it makes sense because if you're dealing with large portions of the population like the NHS is, they
yeah,
don't want to be faffing around going, oh, is that person qualified? Let me just go on reps and have a look at their, you know what I mean? You
yeah,
don't need that. You almost just want to go like a physiotherapist. You don't have to look around and worry. A physio is a physio.
no, chartered
You know what I
physio.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
chartered
a
physio.
chartered
No,
physio. They're qualified. They can help me. Whereas with PT, and so you do have to go. Like I've got chronic fatigue syndrome, so it'd be nice to be able to go. Okay, they're qualified in that sort of
yeah,
area, and it's quite easy and quick to
yeah,
understand that they know what they do, and it's just like great.
yeah.
But you're
That,
right; it's
that,
important.
that was one motivation. There's another one as well, which is around differentiation, which I think is really important. Right? And I've given this example a zillion times, but um, if I qualified yesterday as a PT and you've been qualified for 20 years, and during that 20 years, you've bothered, right? You've done
Yeah,
extra training in CPD and you've read stuff and you've attended stuff and you've accumulated skills and a wider client base. Um, Before we switched that on, we both had exactly the same status. We were
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
right, and I think you then deserve to be called a chartered PT because we've made an assessment of your career and what you've accumulated. Um,
absolutely.
and that's done independently, by the way. It's pretty strict. I'll tell you a funny story about being well, not because I'm a chartered fellow, which sounds okay,
Okay,
right? But when I first applied and I was CEO, that I got sent back. No, not good enough. We need more evidence. So
is that right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
fair play.
wow.
But yes, so that again to a member of public or to somebody, our more discerning public now who know a lot more about our sector and physical activity, the impact of it, I think a woman, for example, who's suffering with menopause probably would like to seek out somebody who's done some learning in physical activity in menopausal women. And so that's very, very clear. And there'll be other people who are absolutely terrified of the gym, but have been probably told by their doctor, you've got chronic hypertension. I can give you a load of beta blockers. You don't want to stay on those forever. The quickest and long-term solution to this is take your dog for a walk, even if you haven't got a dog. You probably need the help of some sort of coach. Looking for those types of people who appeal to me, and I
Yeah.
don't want to go to a gym and start, shaking a great big rope around, or pushing a tire around you know, horses for courses. Nothing wrong with high rocks, but I think that's very important too. If we're going to reach a broader population and we're going to meet health where they want us to meet them.
Yeah.
The other thing, right, and this is evidence that we've got since we switched it on. People really want this recognition. People love it. I see it on LinkedIn every day. People so proud to have achieved that and that recognition. There's some people who've said to me, I've been doing this for years and nobody cared. And now what
It's
you
true.
do for me is,
It's absolutely true, though, isn't it?
yeah,
I mean, some really highly skilled people in our industry,
yeah, there are.
and like you say,
Right. Yeah,
you've been there all that time. You've got all these great qualification knowledge. The only people that know you've got that is the clients that you work with, and maybe
yeah,
it's on your website, so someone might see it. But it is really nice to be able to go. I am a chartered personal trainer
yeah,
and expert in X, Y, and Z. Because I speak to a few, well, I speak to a lot of people, and they'll say the same. And when they, I don't know, I've known some people for 10, 15 years and not know their specialisms.
yeah,
Obviously, we get on and I know them as a person, but and I know they're in the industry. But I don't. But if you've got something like that that recognises it, I think it is really important. And so I'm not driven by that on my name. I'll be honest, but I'd still be proud of having it.
yeah.
But some people are. They like
Oh, they
that
really
ability to
are.
say I am that. So I 100% agree with that, and
Yeah,
it makes
because
them feel proud of what they're doing.
well, they've invested in themselves, right?
Yeah,
So fair play to them. I'm overwhelmed by it. I love seeing it. I'm so chuffed, how much pride people are taking in it. But there's two really important bits to this as well, which is, if sport and physical activity has a role to play in tackling inequalities in this country, which I think it has so much potential to impact on, then the types of people and the roles and the diversity of those roles and the skills has to be broader and recognizable, but it also needs to be accredited. So there's that obligation to meet that breadth of workforce reaching a wider population. But just just from a commercial point of view, it's really good for business.
of course it
To
is.
have a cohort of PTs, for example, if it's an independent gym with different skill set, and you can market to different audiences according to the brilliance you've
But
got,
not just that. If you had four chartered personal trainers across the board, and the gym down the road just has personal trainers,
right?
you stand out an absolute mile. Your price
So
goes up, your
yeah,
reputation improves.
yeah,
So from a marketing perspective alone, it's
yeah,
huge,
I
isn't it?
agree.
So
Yeah,
no, I loved it when you guys announced it and you said they were doing it. I said, oh, it's about time. Not about time from you guys doing it, but it's about time our industry realised we should have the recognition it deserves, rather than just
yeah,
being because like you say, we're never going to change the reputation in the industry unless we do it ourselves. And this is what we talk about with how we relate to the government. And we can talk about that now as we've
yeah,
slipped into that. But we don't have that reputation with the government. But I don't think we give ourselves the credit first to get that back from the government. I don't think there's enough people saying how bloody good we are at what we do. Because the clubs don't. It's quite funny. Obviously, you know the work that they've been doing in the background, and it's quite funny when you talk to them, and a lot of the clubs will go, "Yeah, but X isn't doing this, X isn't doing that, X isn't," and you're like going, "Yeah, but what are you doing to
mm,
drive the reputation of our industry forward? Where's your voice?" And it's quite interesting how that's the apathy we've got into. We're almost expecting someone else to do it and not actually driving it ourselves.
yeah, Yeah, you do need we do need spokespersons or organisations to represent the sector, but I think from a club level and an operator level, um, I think we've been focusing on the wrong thing, right? I think we've been trying to turn a tanker, and um, if you're a well-run club and you care, you will have relationships with the community you work in, right? Whether that's the local authority, whether that's the local GP surgery, whether that's the local health authority, which are now called ICTs. I don't know if it's passing people by, Ryan, or not, but this country has a number of combined authorities or mayoral authorities that have the budgets and the decision-making power in the place. So trying to move the tanker that is government and trying to persuade the Department of Health and Social Care, as we have been doing for years and years and years,
Yeah,
oi, take us seriously, we're the answer to your problems. We're not the answer to all their problems. We have a huge contribution to play, but I don't think you can overstate that. But if I'm going to be brutally honest, Ryan, I think we've overstated our. I think we may have overclaimed a bit, right?
yeah,
And statements like we're the answer to the problems in the NHS.
yeah. We're the first line of defence and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
We definitely cannot overstate our contribution, but we can't lay claim to the fact that we can fix it. So the Department of Health and Social Care is looking at all sorts of other things to fix it and doesn't have enough money to do so, right? So we need to be more focused as a sector on two things. To your point, getting on with it in the place that we're at, and key to that, fundamental to our success, is collating the evidence to support what you've done, right?
yeah,
So the evidence bit has been a challenge for us. We if you look at the NSPG, right? People wonder what the NSPG was, and I might as well just dispel that myth. In COVID, Sport England, Sport Rec Alliance, CIMSPA, UK Active, and Active Party, a few of us got together after Boris's little update and Chris Whitty's update every night and said, right, what does that mean for the sector? We all completely pivoted what we did to make sure that we were agile and getting
yeah.
information out to the sector, because it was, we'd never heard of the word furlough, had we, until COVID?
Oh no, absolutely not.
And particularly for independents, right, who had lots of self-employed PTs, self-employed first time round didn't get any furlough, right? We
Oh
lobbied
no,
for
I was part of that. I got absolutely nothing.
no. So
Even
we
in the end, I got nothing.
so we got together, all of us, each night and said what we're going to do about that. And then, we had these rules, 1 to 2 meters or whatever it was in England, 4 in Scotland, 6.5 in Wales. I mean, why we couldn't agree on 1 to 4 ratio, exercising, contact. Honestly, trying to unscramble that every night was tough, but we did it. So Sporting would say, okay, we'll tell people this. UK Active would say, I'll tell the clubs this. I would say, right, I'm going to tell the people this. And then when we came out on the other side and we lobbied very hard as a group of people for support, so the number one was making sure that self-employed got furlough, which they did. We lobbied hard for that. And the other one was the support fund, which Moving Community Supporting and UK Active in particular were brilliant at. We then would add data saying, if you don't let these facilities reopen, you're going to displace this many hundreds of thousands of people. It's going to cost you this much money. So
Yeah,
anyway, I tell you all that because that's how the NSPG was formed. We sort of opened as a sector again, and we all sort of said that was pretty good, wasn't it, working together and collaborating, and who knew, right? So
yeah,
why don't we continue? So we didn't have a formal terms of reference. We still don't. We just said that we will meet once a month, collaborate and listen to the sector and represent with one voice into government. and it has made a difference. It hasn't made the difference everybody wants it to have made, which is NHS has turned all of its attention to us. Uh,
I think that's a red herring anyway. I don't think we'll ever. I think it's too big, the NHS. I think locally we will. Like
I
do
think
like
you,
Manchester are
yeah,
doing and whatever. But I think the problem with the NHS is it's not one organisation. It
no,
is regional organisations, isn't it? So it's very difficult to sort of then go, we're going to speak to West Street in it.
complicated in the way it's funded, right, Ryan? So GP surgeries are funded one way, the ICT and the trust itself funds is funded another way, and then you've got the hospital trust, which is funded
Yeah.
differently, right? Now, when they're all not part of the same thing, there becomes a lack of motivation. Say GP surgeries then invest a lot of their money in prevention. They don't directly gain from that, the hospital trust does,
Oh, of
right?
course, yeah.
There's a really funny model that needs kind of unpacking. I'm not trying to solve this here, but I'd
Oh,
love to
I dread to think the person that actually has to try and solve
well,
that
I'd
because
love to get in front of Wes Streeting and tell him, right? Because if the, thigh bone was connected to the knee bone here, you would drive up so many more efficiencies, and the system would be far more effective if the funding model was changed. So,
But the funny thing is with that funding model, Tara, is I know someone who from our sector, but he ended up having a secondment between jobs. He worked in a hospital, and it was a Serco-run hospital. So Serco had the whole team. I think from his side, they weren't doing the medical side, so that was still the NHS. They were doing all the porters and the food and all that.
but
And but they had three organisations. So you had Serco running it. Then you had an NHS group that was with the same number, same volume of people. I think they had about 30 people on 100k plus in these teams,
right.
just monitoring Serco to see whether they were keeping to the timings and the activity they'd promised to in the contract, so they could fine them if they weren't achieving it. And then there was another organisation watching both of those. So it was so convoluted. You sort of going, at some point, surely we just have Serco and we let them do their
Yeah.
job. And it
Where
was
was
just
the
bonkers.
accountability?
Yeah.
Who's being accountable for the effectiveness of that
Well, I
organisation?
don't know because you had even Mike was telling us it's absolutely bonkers. A lot
Yeah.
of us were just sat around, and then you'd have an auditor walking around after the porters to make sure that they were doing I don't know, they cleaned that toilet in that amount of time, they delivered the food in that amount of time. There's someone following them around to make sure that they were doing it. You gotta go, and this is where all our
Yeah,
NHS money's going. It's
crazy.
absolutely bonkers. And then, like you say, you add the other funding with the GP, and it's just so bad that I don't think we'll ever find our corner, if you know what I mean, or our angle in it.
No. I mean, and the other thing, from a medical perspective, prevention is means something slightly different, right? So I I'm a firm believer, and so just going back to the NSPG, we have made some real impact. The 100 million swim pool recovery fund, that was the NSPG. Um, we're lobbying for rate relief at the minute. I doubt if we'll get it, but we don't stop lobbying. What's going on in the Middle East right now, we can't have a second hit as a sector on energy prices because we
It'll
want to
finish the
survive the
industry,
sector.
I think.
So we'll probably coalesce again around getting some government support. So we have, but the other power of it, right? This is what we were getting wrong for years, is each one of those members in that group had a relationship with government, and they would collect evidence slightly different from the next one to the next one to the next one.
Okay.
Then we would all go in independently and say, "Oh, hey, look at us, we're really important. Here's all our evidence." And then I'd go in, then Hugh would go in, then Lisa would go in, and Ali would go in. And then to government, I think it was like white noise.
But they're also going, well, why does yours say that and yours says that? Why did
Because the way we collated it, we do use different formulas, different algorithms. So I firmly believe in two things. One, we need some leadership from Sport England that says this is the single source of truth, right? This is the one data set we're going to use.
yeah.
Um, um, the Treasury has a green book, right? So it teaches you how to speak fluent Treasury.
Okay.
In it, we have our own algorithms called the Wellbe. Medical profession uses Quali. Welby was written in order to support quality.
Right.
So why aren't we measuring ourselves as a sector through the Welby algorithm? Because it would make sense to the Treasury,
Absolutely it would.
make sense to the Department of Health and Social Care. So, and I've expressed this to colleagues in Sport England, so that we can all gather our data, but we give it to one organisation to convert into that one source, right, that speaks to government departments.
Well, speaking in, it's quite interesting because we were speaking to DCMS early on in the year,
Yeah,
and they were saying to us, there's only so much we can do as a government. So you can come with all your ideas and everything else.
yeah,
But a lot of the time, the stuff that you're talking about, Ryan, in terms of having, because I'm a big believer in having local integrated health groups in a sense. So when funding comes out, it doesn't always go to the local authority for a massive new leisure centre.
yeah,
Now, I'm not against leisure centres at all. I just find it hard when £50 million is being spent, or 65 in Brighton, which is an obscene amount of money, but £65 million, and I'm sure it's going to be an amazing centre. But what other provisions are being made for the other providers? Because there's a lot of people that won't go to a leisure centre.
mm,
We know that they'd rather go to a private club or a
mm.
boot camp or whatever. So surely some of that funding should be allocated for a wider idea of what the health in that area should look like. Um,
You're definitely right. You're onto something, right? Because that was my second point. Consistent data into central government is one thing, but where the magic happens is locally,
yeah,
right? And I can tell you categorically, we are making a difference in a sector. We will soon become greater than the sum of our parts because of the impact we're having so directly in certain places, right? Everybody talks about GM. It's a great example. It does great work, the cancer prehab and all. Ryan, I can tell you categorically that's happening everywhere. There are
yeah,
pockets of brilliance, and it's either, a friend of CIMSPA, one of our members, doing Bangra Fit in the West Mids, reaching a completely different part of our population, getting them active, don't necessarily see themselves as joining a gym. Look, powerful,
but
right? And
how
then
good would it be if
Lauren
there was actually,
Smiley's doing in Abbeycroft. And so just to your point, you're
yeah,
quite where the magic, and all of these mayoral and combined authorities have power and money now, not as much as they'd like, but they get to set the budgets for transport, education, health, etc. in their place. And this devolved bit seems to have passed this sector by. That's not fair. So Sport England are investing massively in play space, and I applaud them for it. But what we have to do is make sure we understand our part in a system
yeah,
and a
yeah,
system of the place, right? And not try and cookie cut something, say, well, this is all we do. It's, two of them, one of them. What are the needs of that place, and what is our genuine contribution to it? Whether that is a 65 million build in Brighton or multiple innovations in a place, but it has to be led by the local authority's priorities and its ability to pay, but then the contribution of the community, which could be
yeah.
charity, health, schools, transport, whatever it is, we all have. I've got this thing about partnership, right? So people go on about partnership, we need to be better partners, blah, blah, blah. Partnership kind of suggests that for my part, I do this bit, and that's what I'm good at, and I do this bit. And this is going to sound really cheesy, and I haven't really thought it through. Collaboration is stronger than partnership, right? Because collaboration means I'm listening to the problem we're trying to solve, and I'm being realistic about my contribution to it. But I'm going to need some help from somebody else I need to collaborate with to amplify it, or to measure it, or to establish a better practice, or whatever it is. That ecosystem and understanding a system as opposed to being part of it and not really doing very much more,
Yeah, yeah.
that's where it works. And where that's happening, Ryan, we look amazing as a sector because our results are, we know what our results are.
I've said this for years, pretty much since I joined the industry. I never understand why gyms and health centres and everyone competes, because you look at our engagement, 17%, isn't it? Something like that.
Mm.
Now it's probably not as low as I always have to caveat that number because it's 17% of members of gyms. But then you've got all the people that cycle and run and swim, and
It is
you
right.
know what I mean. So I reckon if you took all the sport and all that into account, those that do hill walking and everything, it's probably upwards of 50%. I can imagine
I agree.
it's a
Yeah.
massive number. So I don't think we're as bad as that, and I think it's a shame when we talk about that 70. I mean, I like to use it from a marketing point of view and to push my business, obviously, but it's I think we're well out of kilter because some people don't want to go to a gym, but they may play more sport than most people go to the gym. So
Yeah.
you're sort of looking at it, but they're not counted in that number. So I think we have to be careful a little bit with that. But I always find it really difficult how clubs don't work together because if you created an environment where people knew what health was,
Mhm.
I don't know, there might be 10 of you, 10 of the gyms in a certain area, but if they knew about all of you and you all had open weekends at the same time, you all worked together to get the information
Mm.
about fitness, you'd actually all be successful.
I agree.
But for some reason, I don't know why we got into this real habit back. I mean, when I started, it was real cutthroat sales, fitness first,
Yeah.
valet fitness, all of that. And I think we just haven't got out of that culture. But we don't need to fight each other. This, according to our stats, there's 83% of the population that are not members of clubs. You're going, that's a huge number. Why are we fighting? Why don't we
Yeah.
increase the rhetoric about fitness and health and we'll get more people in
If
the
we
gyms?
doubled that number, we'd need more of us, right? So I agree with you. We wouldn't cancel each other out at
No,
all.
absolutely not.
It's a culture though, right, wasn't it? I went from local authority to community provision. We're a service
Yeah.
for the council taxpayers, for our residents, for our constituents, to being taken over, for want of a better phrase, by DC Leisure, where I was immediately immersed in highly commercial, sales-driven, bottom line driven activity. The marketing budget, I didn't have a marketing budget. All of a sudden, I got this marketing spend. Um, I would have been sent to the headmaster's office if I felt it, my bottom line, right? So we suddenly became very, very commercial, didn't we, as a sector?
Yeah.
And I'm with you. We need to be part of the community, right? There is something so deeply entrenched in sport, physical activity, wellness, health, prevention that centers around community.
Yeah,
Hate it. Be it first, right? And mean it and collaborate. We're far more appealing when we're not trying to push membership. I've got a deal on membership, next to I got Snap, I've got Pure Gym, I've got Gym Group, all I live in a village, I've got 5 towns around me. They've all got all of them.
yeah.
And I will use the nearest,
It's
right? So and my neighbours will use the cheapest. Um, they're all the same bloody price, right? So it's it my neighbours will go where their friends go, and
yeah,
their friends want to go to a comfortable, friendly, well, nice, clean environment, right? Good old-fashioned basics. Is it clean? Is it well lit? Can I park? These sort of things.
yeah.
And we forget all the basics. I am welcomed when I walk in, and somebody cares about my outcomes. They ask me why I'm coming, and they understand my goals, and they're aligned to them, and they want to help me get there, and my mates get there, rather than if you join by the end of February, you get a
Yeah.
£5 off and a free cup of tea. It doesn't.
It doesn't float my boat either. Makes no odds to
The
me.
gyms in that town did what you just said and created an open day around it, building up awareness for people who wouldn't dream of going to a gym. I trust all of them.
And the funny thing is, though, what that does is then it also gives local authority trust because suddenly now you're all working together to drive a common goal of improving health. Whereas at the minute we're trying to say that's what we do. Oh, we,
Yeah,
we help people. Well, you do, of course you do, with people coming
yeah,
into your gym, but it's not actually a thought process. That doesn't come into while you're running your business. You're not thinking I'm helping the community, or a lot of the clubs aren't.
yeah.
They're thinking my bottom line. But if you flip that and sort of go, actually by helping the community, we'll get more people into the clubs, we'll make more money. And
Authority, local health authority, will then see us as a sector as a really, really friendly neighbour, part of this
yeah,
community, making a contribution, not ripping people off, not having a sale, no this Black Friday stuff, making a contribution to this place and its population and its
and you
health.
know the funny thing is, you made a drive price up because you're delivering value. That's the other thing. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Pure Gym, not necessarily because of them and the people who run it. There's some amazing people in there, but just because it drove the price down, it drove the price and the service levels of the whole industry down, unfortunately, because they did so well at what they were good at.
Mm.
But it drove it all down. Then everyone had to try and compete, so all the prices stayed the same. But people will pay for value. I mean, you only have to look at the boutique clubs where they're paying
Well,
150,
yeah,
160 quid a month. But
yeah.
if we were adding value, your price could go up for the whole industry. Even Peugeot would be able to
Yeah.
drive their prices up, wouldn't they? But
I get
it's an interesting one.
I get torn on this convo, right? Because my old world was very much that, right? You know, and
Yeah,
so you've taken me back, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, oh, if I was back in it, I would do this. And um, for me, in the world that I operate in now, from a sort of strategic, sort of helicopter point of view, making any access to physical activity without barriers and
yeah.
tackling
No, I can get that.
inequalities in our country are so, so important now. So, um, I hear people say things like tackling these stubborn inequalities. And I kind of struggle with the word stubborn. That's down to us. We've got to make ourselves more accessible, right?
Yeah,
And whilst we're still talking about commerciality, um, we've almost got to adopt a bit of a Patagonia mindset, which is value and purpose driven,
I
as opposed
it's
to
trying to
profit.
get us out of that sales model into that model, isn't it? To sort of go
Yeah,
actually, because there's always a risk with that. That we'll go for that side of it, but what if we don't make the money? And that's why they don't want to do it. But you're almost going, it's trying to convince them to go actually, but you will make the money. The money will come off the back of having that
yeah.
altruistic view. It's
But
crazy.
having a really cohesive, collaborative sector now, right? And using bodies like UK Active to really, really pull that in, it is so important, right? Because if we are going to reach wider populations and we are going to have the impact that we say we're going to have, there will be bandwagon jumpers, right? We are going to see more independent gyms rocking up and all of these people on Instagram saying that they know everything there is to know about diet, nutrition, and physical activity, and they know naff all. Um, we need to be cohesive. We need to be a unit, right? And say, this is our standard as a sector. Buyer beware, population beware of the cowboys who are now rocking up, jumping on a bandwagon because it looks lucrative. But we have to mean it here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, they're just going to come and compete with us all and give us a bad reputation. So there's some work to do, I think, for organisations like CIMSPA partnering with UK Active and collaborating better on our purpose, on our collective vision, and but our identity as a sector.
We'll I'll let you go in a minute because we have kept you far too long. But
Yeah,
I do
Tams,
enjoy.
I think I've got a meeting. I've got a meeting now. Sorry, I
No,
haven't
no, no, no.
seen
I'll
the
let you go
time.
in a minute. But it'll be interesting now to see with the new CEO of UK Active and everything else. So I'm really excited for the next 12, 18 months because you guys are moving forward and making great strides from the workplace side of it. And I love what you guys are doing. That's why I've been desperate to have you on, Tara. And then obviously with the new CEO coming in at UK Active, I can see obviously Dave's already there, and I love what Dave's doing. So if we can get the right CEO in there working with Dave as well, I think those guys are between everybody. I could see massive strides forward.
But I'm grateful for your comments on our work, Ryan. It um, it doesn't stop there. Perhaps we can come back on and I can talk to some of your members about career pathways and engaging with this,
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
drive
yeah,
up
that'd be.
participation and to drive up, for those of them are commercials because engaging with the career pathway and the careers hub that we've got, and the one thing I said 10, 12 years ago, myself and Spencer, is we'll kind of know that we've cracked it, right? When we hear or see operators and gym owners saying, my people are not a cost, they're an investment.
Yeah.
Right? You can have all the kit in the world, you can have all the tech in the world, you can have all the noise in the world. It's the PT, it's the coach, it's the Group X instructor that
We
keeps.
work in hospitality, Tara. I still believe it. And maybe that's my hospitality background saying it, but we are a
Yeah,
people industry, a people first industry.
people love people, yeah, and it's an honor for me to run the organization that looks after our people, and yeah, professional recognition for me is the single most important thing that we can embrace now as a sector.
Yeah,
For the right reason.
I think if we can get and we can change the perceptions in the population as to what we do and everything else, I think
Yeah,
we'll because then you just drive more people
yeah.
that want to do our job, and that just drives standards up, doesn't it? So look, I am going to let you go to your other meeting as much as I can
Okay.
keep you on all afternoon, Tara. Appreciate you coming on. I really do. It's if anybody does want to get in touch with Tara, obviously your details will be on the on the podcast.
Yeah, it's fine.
If you're an independent club, I would 100% tell you to get in touch with CIMSPA because a lot of the guys that we work with don't really engage with you guys. I don't know why, and
Perhaps
I
we should
think it's
host the
more from the
webinar
fact.
then as well, right? And we get, some of your members to come up. We'll just have a listening session to say, look, this is what we do. How does it help you?
Yeah.
We can do
Well,
that.
everybody we pass through to, everyone we talk to and go, you've got to speak to Tara or a team.
Yeah.
They always come back and go, oh wow, actually, yeah, they one that you're willing to listen. That's what I love about you, Tara. You take it in from. I mean, obviously we've had a few discussions, and it's one of those ones. We're not always perfect, but we'll listen and we'll improve. And I just think
We'll
that's what you
listen.
guys have done over the years, and I think
Yeah.
that's really important. So,
Apart from
but
anything,
that's
we're
oh,
in receipt of the public purse. I think we're obliged to listen. I don't think, it's for us to take that money and then tell you how to operate
well,
your.
no, you could do.
I know,
There's a
we're
lot,
pretty
there's a lot
arrogant.
of government departments that do that, Tara.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, let's finish there, right?
all right, absolutely brilliant. Have an awesome weekend,
And you
and thanks for coming on.
stay well, Ryan. Take care.
All
Thanks.
right, take care.